Thank you so much for joining, Alina, to the Dwellynn show today. I'm your host, Ola Dantes. I cannot wait to dig in and kind of jump in here with you today. Thank you so much.
Ola, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me to your show. It's my pleasure to be here and to talk to your listeners and to you about the real estate investing.
Nice. All right, cool. So let's jump right into it. Why real estate? How did you start? Kind of go back all the way back, where you from? Why did you choose real estate? And kind of like what you've been up to lately?
Sure. Well, I'm from Brooklyn, as you can tell by my accent. No, I'm joking. So I was born in what used to be Soviet Union. At least that's the country that I came from to United States. And Brooklyn is where I used to live originally. But when I got married, we moved to New Jersey, and I've been living here ever since. But anyway, I started my career after getting a degree in accounting as a tax accountant with Ernst & Young. And, after doing it for a few years, I decided that I wanted to do something else. So I switched to the software development world and have been in software development for many years ever since in various roles, but mainly the roles are around being the liaison between business and technology. And while working in software technology, we've been investing our 401k funds and IRA funds, and everything has been invested in Wall Street. And that worried me for many years that, all of my investments are in either stock, bonds, or mutual funds. And, after seeing so many market fluctuations, I didn't want to wait anymore, and I decided to find something else, something to diversify out of real estate. I'm sorry, something to diversify out of Wall Street. So real estate has always been on my mind, but I haven't really taken action. So about 5 or 6 years ago, I decided to take action, and I started doing my research in real estate. And I came across the world of syndications, started digging further and further, and finally decided to take a leap. And I invested in my first syndication as an equity partner, and kind of enjoyed the process and selecting a specific investment. So then came another one and another one, and so opportunity it was, and how easy it was, and how it was giving myself and my family a way to diversify out of Wall Street. An idea was born. I decided to take this further and help years ago, have never heard of the word syndication, and help them to diversify their portfolios. So I started my business with the sole purpose of helping other folks to learn about syndications and helping them to diversify into real estate. And it's not, when I say diversifying in real estate, it's not just diversifying into a single asset in one location. There are actually tons of different assets within the world of syndications people can diversify into, and there are tons of different geographic areas. My partners and I work nationwide. We invest in several commercial asset classes in the areas where it makes sense, where the markets are still emerging, and where the cap rates are not as condensed as in, for instance, where I live, New York, New Jersey area, where it's too tight. And we help other people do the same thing. They can also invest alongside of us in the asset classes of their choice, and in the locations that they like based on their interest. So that's in a nutshell my story.
I like it. I like it. Thank you so much for that good, broad kind of introduction. So,
My pleasure.
yeah. So if I'm an investor or a dual listener listening to this and I'm like, oh, wow, I want to kind of join with Alina, one of these deals, or maybe invest with her, how would I select the right asset class? I've got, people talking to me about apartments, people talking to me about storage units, people talking to me about, all just this different asset classes. How do you choose an investment, a real estate investment strategy that I guess complements your, long-term outlook, or if you're maybe about to retire, or maybe you're somewhat younger and you just kind of want aggressive returns, how do you select those asset classes?
Sure. So being a former accountant makes me very conservative, and even though I started with multifamily, which are apartment complexes, and that's purely because it's just too close to home. I myself lived in apartment complexes for many years, and I knew the asset class pretty well. I understood the market. I understand how that asset class works, and that's why this was a natural choice, more or less, to start investing with apartment complexes. However, gradually, as I was digging further and further into commercial real estate, I uncovered and started researching and picked two more asset classes, such as you mentioned, storages and mobile home parks. And I did that gradually. So, I started with storages. After doing the research, I realized how good of an asset class it is. It actually performs surprisingly well during the recessions, and simply because a lot of people decide that it's the time when they may not be able to afford larger places and they want to downsize. And during the downsize, and everyone thinks that they are going to a smaller place temporarily. That's why storage is a perfect location and perfect spot to store their belongings, because they don't want to sell anything. They're thinking that they'll come back into larger space down the road, and that helps storages perform really well during the downturns. Aside from that, storages have a much lower expenses, because simply there is no plumbing, there is very little electricity, and there's just not much expenses in general, and there is a lower barrier to entry in general with the storages. And I can say the same about mobile home parks, and simply because mobile home parks slightly less expensive than multifamily, and the mobile homes themselves, they cost less, and that allows people that have lower incomes to either buy them or rent them out in the areas where the real estate is too expensive for them to afford, yet they want their kids to go to decent schools, so they try to live in the areas where the schools are good, and there are opportunities to buy their own mobile home through risk performance. So assisted living, but still in the process of researching. So once I finalized my research and decide that yes, this is the asset class I want to work on, I would start looking for the deal sponsors and partners to work with that specialize in a particular asset class and have extensive experience, and can bring deals that would be appropriate for my investors in this particular asset class.
Oh wow, yeah, those are like that. You had a lot of really good points there on some of these asset classes, because it looks like when folks decide they want to go into the real estate investor game, they're just an absolute myriad of choices in terms of asset classes, and people get overwhelmed, right? They're like, wow, I don't know what to do. I kind of throw my hands up because I don't know which asset class to go with, and they kind of just I guess get stunned by the information and just kind of not go ahead. So if there's somebody listening on our conversation and they need help, with not only choosing the right asset class, but when they do think they want to go with multifamily or storage or whatever it is, or mobile homes, they need someone to, maybe a syndicator, or like myself, to actually place that capital with, and then go out there and make sure that that syndicator or that managing partner of a deal would perform, right? So how do you help people select the right syndicators, essentially?
Sure. So before going to that step, when I meet a new investor, I basically take them through a specific set of questions, which help me understand, where this particular investor stands, what are their needs, what are their goals, expectations in general, what's their background and education. That helps me determine what kind of materials and what kind of information to pass to the specific investor, or if it's a couple, to this couple, so I can get them up the speed in the process of selecting the assets and selecting the investments that are suitable for them. And in terms of selecting a specific investment, majority of people prefer multifamily. I guess, again, just like myself, a lot of people feel that it's close to home. They understand this asset class much better than other asset classes. But there are also quite a few folks that are interested in diversifying. So when I offer them to invest in, say, storage, and I share with them the benefits that I see in the storage and present a specific deal, then based on the discussions we had and based on the articles and the information I sent them in the past, they decide whether this particular investment is suitable for them or whether they need to wait for another one. So it's basically a lot of trial and error, question answer kind of sessions, and joint discussions where I help the investors and guide them in a specific direction so they can make the informed decision of choosing the investment or investments that are suitable for them. And like I said, some people like to stick to one location, one asset class. Others want to diversify to be everywhere and in every asset class. No, so it's really an individual choice.
All right. So before we get into the quick rounds, there's a quick a segue. There's been a lot of buzz about opportunity zones, and I was speaking to a seller recently, an apartment building seller, and he was like, "Oh yeah, Ola, have you heard about the opportunity zones?" And I was like, "No, actually, I don't know what those are." But and then you and I, we've been talking before the call, and you mentioned it. So can you just kind of like tell our Dwell listeners a little bit more about what the OZs are?
Sure, absolutely. So that it actually hits close to home, as one of the areas in New York City qualifies as opportunity zones. I'm talking about Long Island City, a portion of Queens that's overlooking Manhattan. So in general, opportunity zones are geographic areas that are in need of development, and that's generic definition. And then it's up to the government to pick specific areas, which they already done. And there are maps available anywhere. You can just Google them, that cover the areas that qualify as opportunity zones. So as I mentioned, Long Island City happens to be one of those opportunity zone areas, and that's where actually Amazon headquarters #2 are coming pretty soon. And the area happened to be so hot after they heard about the opportunity zones, and after the owners have heard that the Amazon is coming here, that what I've seen in our local market is that a lot of local sellers decided to pull back their properties from the market simply because they believe that the value is probably gonna triple or even quadruple, if not more, sometime soon. So they decided to just sit tight and wait to see how the market will play out. But in general, for those folks that don't know, so not only the areas where opportunity zones are defined by the government, but these areas are also qualified for specific tax breaks. And these tax breaks start at year 5 and go to year 10 and beyond. And the government basically says if you hold your property for at least 5 years, then your capital gain tax is going to be decreased. And then I think by year 10 or longer, that capital gain tax comes down to 0. So don't quote me on whether it's year 10 or 12, but if you hold it for the longest periods defined by the government, then that tax gain goes to 0 completely. So that's obviously is on mind of a lot of real estate investors, and a lot of investors that think, finding these opportunity zones and investing in it just because it's so beneficial from tax perspective.
So, one last question. So if I'm a real estate, investor, or maybe investor to be, and I'm just like trying to wrap my head around what do I, want to do next? How can I get started? I don't know if I should do this myself. I don't know if I should go to a syndicator. I don't know how to go about this, just so much.
Sure.
What do you want to say to that person?
Sure. First, I would advise that person to step back and decide for themselves what are their goals. What do they want to achieve? And in addition to that, they need to determine, are they really interested to be an active real estate investor? And another question to ask yourself is, what is my bandwidth? In other words, let's say we're talking about a busy business owner. Let's say it's a dentist who owns a dental practice and, very, very busy, has a lot of clients, plus runs a business with this dental practice. The question is, in addition to my dental practice, do I really have the bandwidth and desire to run a real estate business? And, if the answer is, oh, I probably have 2-3 hours of the time left, and I really want to spend that time with the family or relax or, do something for fun, play tennis or something else, then the answer is obvious. Then being a passive investor is a much better choice in this case than being an active investor. If, on the contrary, the person is, a W-2 employee who works 40 hours a week and wants to have control over their investment and have another 20 to 30 hours to buy properties and actively manage them, then, all the power to them. They can start looking for properties, educating themselves, and taking action. But again, answering those 3 questions would help you determine which route is best for you. So it's whether you enjoy doing it, how much time you have, and what's your priorities in general.
Thank you so much. So we definitely dwelling into the quick round. These are going to be quick questions, quick answers. You ready, Ma?
Yep.
All right. First question. What makes Alina unique? What is that differentiating factor that separates you from the next girl or the next guy?
Sure. To me, the human factor is absolutely important. When I talk to someone new, I want to learn about that person. I want to know what makes them unique. I want to know what's their education background, what are they looking for, what are their goals, because my personal goal is to help other people, not to just blindly offer them investments. That's why I take a very individualized approach when I deal with my investors, because I believe, by helping others, I'm able to, help many more generations to come of these folks and their friends and family. And I feel very, very rewarded when I know that I'm helping a lot of other people. And I believe my background in education, having degrees in accounting and finance and working in a financial field for many years and working in the corporate world for many years, helps me have that skill set to work with people, understand their needs, and help them make the right choices when it comes to real estate investing. Sorry if it wasn't too short.
It's okay. We'll take it. We like free stuff at Dwellynn. Second question. What was the last book that you read? And what was the one kind of nugget, like one thing you picked up from reading that book?
Let's see. The one that comes to mind that I read recently, it's called You're a Badass by Jen Sincero. What I picked from that book is she basically helps readers understand who they really are, and if there is anything anyone wants to change, and obviously we're all humans, there is always something that we can change in ourselves. So if someone has a desire to change that something little, something big, that I highly recommend that this is the book to go. Again, it's You're a Badass by Jen Sincero.
Oh yeah, I've seen that book, but I've never picked it up. Yeah, that's what a fascinating title too. And last question, you're helping a ton of investors, getting started in the real estate investing game, for this, really advanced asset classes, frankly, and you're doing a great job. I mean, obviously, I know we talk a few times. I know you got family, I know you got your business, SAMO Financial. What do you do for fun?
Well, I don't know if I want to mention it, but for fun, as a hobby, outside of the family and the business, my favorite hobby is matchmaking.
That is a first.
Again, I've always been about helping people, and so when I see that I can connect to people that are meant to each other, I feel blessed, and I feel like I'm helping other people being happy. So it makes me very, very happy.
That's interesting. So, I mean, we can't brush over this. I'm sorry to the listeners, but we gotta dip just a tiny dip. Yeah, so just give us an example. How does this work?
You said fast questions. Okay.
For some weird reason, I want to know more.
No, okay, never mind. So my latest win, and by the way, they don't come too often. It's I do it in between, so it's not something that I do on a regular basis. Just when I have time and when I see there's opportunity. So anyway, my latest win was matching two people where a guy came all the way from Canada to a woman that lives in Brooklyn. So they met, they connected, and they got married, and they have kids and live happy ever after.
I love it. That is amazing. That is a first on the Dwellynn show. I love it. Thank you so much. For your time. If I'm a dual listener and I'm listening to this and I'm like, I love what Alina is doing. I want to connect with her. I want Alina to help me get started in investing in multifamily. How can people reach out to you? What is the best way to connect with you?
So I'm available on all social media platforms, LinkedIn, Bigger Pockets, or through my website, SAMO Financial. My contact information is there as well. I can be reached through my phone or email or any other ways. And Ola, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure to be on your show. You're a great host, and I'm really grateful to be interviewed by you.
No, thank you for coming on the show. I really, really appreciate it. Just to get a different perspective as well, and just really trying to, help people. I mean, you've helped me personally numerous times. So I cannot thank you enough for taking time out talking to us. Yeah, thank you so much.
My pleasure.